Founded in 330 CE by the Roman Emperor Constantine the Great, the city was envisioned as a beacon of power, culture, and religion that was strategically positioned on the Bosphorus, the slender thread that ties Asia to Europe and separates the Black Sea from the Mediterranean. This metropolis was not merely another city, it was designed from the very start to be a world capital. Constantine chose the ancient city of Byzantium for its unrivaled location, foreseeing it as the intersection of trade, diplomacy, and military oversight. The choice of locating the new capital here underscored a broader and deeply transformative strategy: to shift the center of power from the old Rome, beleaguered by internal strife and constant threats from barbarian tribes, to a fresher, more vigorous location that could safeguard and renew the Roman Empire's faltering strength. The founding of Constantinople can be seen as a pivot upon which the fate of the Eastern Roman Empire swung. It signified a revolution in Roman identity, marking a departure from its pagan roots towards the embrace of Christianity. Constantine's new city was to be a Christian haven, a monumental shrine to his newfound faith. The emperor's conversion and subsequent elevation of Christianity from persecuted cult to a cornerstone of imperial ideology were codified in the bricks and boulevards of this newly laid city. Moreover, Constantinople was a melding pot of cultures, a place where Greek philosophers, Christian theologians, and Roman administrators came together, where the architectural grandeur of the Roman Empire met the spiritual fervor of the Christian world. This convergence heralded the Byzantine Empire's rich cultural and intellectual history, which would shine as a light of learning and sophistication in the medieval period. Thus, the establishment of Constantinople was far more than an administrative decision. It was a critical juncture in European and Near Eastern histories, a recalibration of cultural, religious, and political paradigms that would resonate through the corridors of time long after the city's walls had witnessed the rise and fall of empires. As we delve into the fascinating saga of how this city came to be, how it rose from a strategic necessity to an emblem of a whole era, we uncover not just the story of a city, but the reimagining of an entire civilization under the stewardship of one of history's most pivotal figures, Constantine the Great. This is the story of how a new capital was conceived and built, reflecting a new dawn for an empire, an enduring legacy that shaped not just a region, but the very contours of the world stage. The story of Constantinople is deeply embedded within the tumultuous currents of Roman history, a narrative woven through times of grandeur and periods of profound crisis. As the 3rd century AD progressed, the Roman Empire found itself continually battered by a maelstrom of both internal division and external invasions, an empire so colossal yet so fragile in its overstretched boundaries. It was an era that desperately cried out for radical solutions to persistent problems, a time when the empire's very continuity was at stake. This crisis was sharply characterized by its unwieldy sprawl over vast territories, which made central administration increasingly impracticable. The sheer size of the empire led to lengthy communication lags, slow military responses, and a dilution of central authority. Moreover, internal challenges such as political intrigue, economic instability, and the ever-present threat of usurpation added layers of complexity to governing such an expansive realm. The external pressures were no less daunting, with continuous threats at the borders, from Germanic tribes on the northern frontiers to the Sasanian Empire in the east, each probing the vulnerabilities of a seemingly invincible Leviathan. Enter Diocletian, a leader emerging from the chaos with a vision fundamentally different from his predecessors. Rather than continue the unmanageable task of single-handedly overseeing the sprawling empire, Diocletian introduced the Tetrarchy in 293 CE, a bold new system where the empire was cleaved into two, east and west, each further split again, to be ruled by an Augustus senior emperor and a Caesar junior emperor. This quadripartite system of governance aimed to bring closer oversight and more efficient control, bringing the edges of the empire under tighter supervision. Despite the initial successes of the tetrarchic system, it soon became apparent that it was but a temporary plaster on a gaping structural wound. The inherent tensions between the rulers, along with the ambitious nature of Roman military and political hierarchy, meant that stability under the tetrarchy was precarious. Upon Diocletian's abdication, the fragile cooperative fell apart, leading to a series of conflicts over supreme control of the empire. It was amidst this backdrop of continuing strife and the quest for dominance that Constantine the Great emerged, his ascent marked conspicuously by his victory at the Battle of Milvian Bridge in 312 CE. A victory which Constantine attributed to a visionary occurrence, a celestial sign of the Christian cross, which led to his conversion to Christianity. This personal transformation was shortly followed by the Edict of Milan in 313 CE, granting religious tolerance throughout the empire and establishing Christianity as a major religion under imperial patronage, thereby shifting the spiritual landscape of the empire. With these events as the cornerstone, Constantine envisaged and began to implement a sweeping transformation of the Roman state. Central to his vision was the establishment of a new capital, a city that would reflect the renovated ethos of the empire he commanded, one that could serve both strategic and symbolic functions. The choice of Byzantium as the site for this new capital, later to be christened Constantinople, was a masterstroke of geopolitical acumen. Positioned strategically on the Bosporus Strait, the city straddled Europe and Asia, serving as a nexus of trade routes, a gateway between continents, and a sentinel on the frontier of the eastern territories. By refounding Byzantium as Constantinople in 330 CE, Constantine wasn't merely inaugurating a new city, he was asserting a reimagined empire. This was a decisively significant act that was at once an administrative, cultural, and spiritual proclamation. Constantinople was envisaged as a symbol of the unity and strength of a new Christian empire, a beacon of stability that would radiate its influence both eastward and westward, projecting the power of a rejuvenated Roman regime and serving as a fulcrum of Christian authority and doctrinal orthodoxy. Thus, in the broad fusion of Roman history, the founding of Constantinople marks a pivotal epoch. It represents a visionary realignment of the empire, reflecting shifts both within the Mediterranean geopolitical theater and in the deeper undercurrents of cultural and religious life. The city's establishment mirrored the transformative aspirations of Constantine's rule, an enduring legacy that would profoundly shape the contours of both the ancient and medieval worlds. In the strategic chess game of ancient geopolitics, the founding of Constantinople in 330 CE stands out as a pivotal move. The selection of Byzantium, a city that had existed quietly for centuries under Greek and later Roman dominance, was transformed overnight by Emperor Constantine the Great's decision. The locale of this newly christened city was no less than a geostrategic masterstroke. Perched on the slender thread of land that weaves between Europe and Asia, the city governed the Bosporus Strait. This narrow but crucial waterway acted like the gatekeeper between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean, making Constantinople not just a city, but a bastion that controlled vital maritime routes. Thus, the empire fortified its economic vitality and military prowess, as control over these waters meant dominance in trade and a defensive stronghold against naval invasions. Furthermore, Constantinople's position was uniquely suited to serve as a cultural and political hub. It stood as a physical and symbolic bridge connecting, but also separating, the continents and cultures of Europe and Asia. This bridging was not only geographical but also deeply cultural. Under Constantine's ambitious urban planning, Constantinople evolved into a canvas painted with diverse cultural motifs. Despite its foundation under Christian zeal, a marked departure from Rome's pagan roots, the city became a melting pot, where the Hellenistic traditions met the remnants of Roman administrative sophistication. Historical narratives suggest that this blend of cultures fostered a vibrant urban identity, catalyzing developments in art, science, and theology. The city's cultural plurality was its strength, enabling it to become the thriving heart of Orthodox Christianity, and later a significant focal point in the emerging dialogues with Islamic civilizations. Architectural and urban development initiatives undertaken during the early years of Constantinople further illustrate the grandeur envisioned by its founder. The construction of monumental structures such as the Hagia Sophia was not merely an act of religious devotion, but also a declaration of imperial might and cultural renaissance. Hagia Sophia, with its massive dome and intricate mosaics, stood as a testament to Byzantine architectural ambition and ingenuity. It was more than a cathedral. It was a beacon of the Christian world and an architectural marvel that drew visitors and scholars from across the medieval world. The urban landscape of Constantinople was deliberately laid out to inspire awe and order, reflecting the new capital's role as the heart of an empire that sought to project power and piety in equal measure. Politically, the establishment of Constantinople signaled a significant transformation in the embodiment of power. By moving the capital from the old city of Rome to Byzantium, Constantine was not only shifting geographical focus, but was also instituting a new form of governance. The city's governance structure, heavily imbued with the emperor's presence, paved the way for a more autocratic form of rule. This centralization of power was mirrored in the city's concentric layout, with the imperial palace at its core, radiating outward administrative and spiritual authority. Such a design was emblematic of the broader political ethos of the era, setting a precedent that would echo through the corridors of power in both Byzantine and later Eastern and Western dynasties. In conclusion, the strategic, cultural, architectural, and political threads woven into the founding of Constantinople collectively crafted a city that was far more than a capital. It was a statement of vision, power, and ambition. This city, poised on the crossroads of the world, became the epicenter of an empire that would endure for over a millennium, testament to its founder's grand designs, and the enduring allure of a city that was, quite literally, the center of the ancient world. In the annals of history, few figures tower as prominently over the landscape of the late Roman Empire as Emperor Constantine the Great. Born on February 27th, around 272 AD in Nisus, Moesia, now Nice, Serbia, Constantine emerged from the cauldron of tumultuous power struggles that marked the Tetrarchy period. The son of Constantius Chlorus, a respected ruler in the West, and his consort Helena, a woman of humble origin who would later be sanctified for her pious devotion, Constantine's ascent to power was as dramatic as it was transformative. Before we delve into his monumental decision to found Constantinople, let's understand the man behind the imperial robes. Constantine's rule, beginning in 306 AD, was marked by a series of military and political triumphs, most notably his victory at the Battle of Milvian Bridge in 312 AD. It was purportedly before this battle that Constantine experienced a revelatory vision, leading him to convert to Christianity, a pivotal turn not just for his reign, but for the Christian world. Yet his faith, often seen as a beacon of his rule, was also complex and politically nuanced, intertwining the divine with the temporal to fortify his reign. Constantine's decision to establish a new capital in 330 AD at Byzantium, which he grandiosely rechristened as Constantinople, the city of Constantine, was an act overflowing with ambition and foresight. This new city, straddled across Europe and Asia upon the strategic Bosphorus Strait, was not merely a capital. It was an assertion, a clear signal of the shifting focus from the old, decaying centers of Rome and its western provinces to the burgeoning realms of the East. Every stone laid in Constantinople, from its formidable walls to its awe-inspiring Hagia Sophia, was a testament to Constantine's vision of a renewed Christian empire that would outshine the decadent metropoles of the Mediterranean. Drawing the curtain back from Constantine to look at his accomplished chronicler, Eusebius of Caesarea provides us another layer of depth in understanding Constantinople's early days. Born around 260 AD, Eusebius is often dubbed as the father of church history, his most famous work being The History of the Church. His writings serve not just as a historiographical source, but as a lens through which we can examine the ideological and theological currents that shaped the era. Eusebius closely aligned himself with the imperial court, and his narratives often celebrated and legitimized Constantine's religious policies, portraying him as the chosen emperor of Christ. His portrayal of Constantine was not merely sycophantic. It was rooted in a profound belief in the divinely anointed role of the emperor as the shepherd of his Christian flock. Through Eusebius's eyes, we grasp the foundational themes of Constantinople, a city destined to be the beacon of Christian truth, guarded by God and guided by an emperor whose soul was as much devoted to the welfare of his citizens as it was to the expansion of his territories. In understanding these two colossal figures, we perceive Constantinople not just as a geographical entity, but as a profound idea, a vision splendidly conceived by the political acumen of Constantine, and eloquently narrated by the scholarly pen of Eusebius. The tale of its founding is interwoven with their personal beliefs, political aspirations, and, significantly, their spiritual destinies. Their lives remind us that behind every great city are great minds whose dreams are etched into its very stones. Understanding these personalities helps us appreciate the rich, complex patchwork that is the history of Constantinople, reflecting a unique synthesis of power, faith, and intellect that continues to intrigue and inspire scholars and dreamers alike. As we wrap up our contemplative journey through the corridors of history to the founding of Constantinople in 330 CE, it's clear that the establishment of this new capital was a pivotal moment, a truly transformational chapter in the sprawling saga of an empire. Constantinople was not just another city, it was an audacious reimagining of what an empire could be, marking a distinct shift in the Roman ethos, from a purely Western orientation to a more balanced, strategically located nexus between East and West. This strategic repositioning had profound political implications. By moving the heart of the empire to the bustling straits of the Bosphorus, Constantine the Great effectively shielded his domain from the increasing threats emanating from the European barbarians, while also placing it at the crossroads of Europe and Asia, enhancing its ability to influence and control trade routes. It was a masterstroke that not only fortified the empire's defenses, but also ensured its economic prosperity, allowing for a flourishing of culture and trade that would echo through the ages. Culturally, the foundation of Constantinople represented a significant departure from previous norms. Here was a city that was conceived as a reflection of imperial power and Christian piety, distinguished by monumental architecture such as the Hagia Sophia. This bold synthesis of imperial and religious symbolisms wasn't merely decorative, it was a statement of the new face of the empire, merging political authority and religious significance in unprecedented ways. In many respects, Constantinople was envisioned as the new Rome, a beacon of stability and the perpetuator of Roman traditions. Yet it was undeniably unique, marked by a distinctive cultural vibrancy that drew scholars, artists, and theologians from across the known world. Religiously, the establishment of Constantinople as a new Rome had transformative effects on the Christian Church. By creating a capital that was free from the pagan influences pervasive in the Old Rome, Constantine was able to foster a Christian cultural nucleus that would play a crucial role in shaping the theological and ecclesiastical debates that defined early Christianity. This would eventually lead to the city becoming a central hub in the spread of Christian doctrine, dramatically shaping the religious landscape of the Mediterranean and beyond. The survival and evolution of Constantinople, growing to surpass the glory of its progenitor Rome, underscores the city's remarkable resilience and strategic foresight of its founders. It thrived through periods of siege and conquest, rebirthing itself repeatedly to emerge as an enduring symbol of imperial and cultural might. The city's ability to adapt and flourish, influencing the course of European and Near Eastern history, reflects on its foundational principles: visionary leadership, strategic location, cultural inclusivity, and religious significance. In conclusion, the founding of Constantinople was indeed a redefinition of an empire at every level, serving as a focal point of political innovation, cultural richness, and religious fervor. Its story invites us to reflect on how cities can be much more than places of habitation, but are powerful symbols of human aspiration and resilience. The legacy of Constantinople, in its architectural majesty, its political sagacity, and its cultural and religious contributions, encourages us to consider how our own cities might be remembered one day. How, like Constantinople, they might stand as testaments to the heights of human achievement and the enduring quest for significance in an ever-evolving world. That brings us to the end of this episode. Goodbye for now.